welcome back to another video. And today in this video, what I have for everyone is my versus / comparison between the Moto G Power 2020 model and the OnePlus Nord N100. Alright, so today in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to compare and contrast some of the similarities and differences between both devices, and then by the end of the video, I'm going to give y'all my overall recommendations as to which device you should pick up over the other, and or if not, you should pick up both and why. Alright, so hopefully by the end of this video, you guys and gals know which device is better than the other, or you know which device you're picking up. That being said, we're going to try and go through this video as fast as possible, so if there's anything that I do not cover, please feel free to check out the links that will be available down below in the video description if you'd like to know additional information, and the full review links will be down there in the video description as well. So if there's any information that I forgot to cover here, it will also be available in those full reviews for either device in very good detail. All right, so this is just going to be a quick down and dirty comparison. So if there's anything I missed, check out the additional coverage if you would like to know more. That being said, without further ado, let's dive into the video. Man, I can't talk already. This is going to be a good one. All right, so starting off here, the first thing I want to talk about with everyone is the overall build quality and design of both of these devices. Now, in terms of the build quality and design on both of these devices, they both have a plastic unibody design here, and they're both primarily built out of plastic, okay? So you got plastic backs on both, okay? And you got plastic side rails and plastic buttons on both, all right? As you can see. So that's the G Power there. And then here is the OnePlus Nord N100. Okay, so again, plastic sides, plastic unibody, plastic buttons. All right. Now, the only difference in terms of the build with these two devices is the Nord N100 has a plastic everything. So this is plastic even down to the mid frame, right? Whereas the Moto G Power here is plastic everything, but it has a 6000 series aluminum mid-frame. So this is reinforced with aluminum, okay? Other than that, that's probably the only key difference in terms of build materials between these devices. So what does having a plastic build actually get you? Well, number one, it cuts down on the overall weight of the device, so the feel in hand is a little bit more balanced. And along with that, having a plastic device does help with the overall durability, especially if you happen to drop your device and it's not in the case. It's more apt to survive and not shatter if you have a plastic body. But some negatives of having a plastic body is it's very slippery. It's very fingerprinty. As you can see, I wiped these devices down before I started the video, and a couple seconds in, mad fingerprints already, and they're more prone to scratches. All right. So those are some upsides and some downsides to having a plastic builds, right? That being said, how do I feel about the overall build quality on both of these devices? Well, I have to say both manufacturers did a great job, because as I said, they feel very solid in the hands with a very nice weight to them, and that plastic build does give them more durability in the long run. Okay, so I'm okay with putting up with fingerprints and the slippery builds. Y'all already know what I'm going to say. You definitely want to pick up a case for either of these devices. Okay, and you definitely want to pick up screen protectors as well. Just protect the overall investment that you made. All right, but in terms of the build, who wins in my opinion, we're going to have to call this one a tie. All right, both manufacturers did a great job in terms of the overall build quality and build materials. All right, now moving on, let's talk about the designs on these. Now, these both have a new school modern design. So you can see they both have their triple camera setups on the rear. They both have their always active capacitive fingerprint scanners on the back. All right. And you can see they both have their punch hole cameras in the front. So if we light this up, you can see on the Moto, got that front punch hole camera there. Alright, and then the same rules apply for the OnePlus. Triple camera on the rear, fingerprint scanner. Alright, flipping it to the front. Lighten it up. Got that punch hole camera right there. Right? So, in terms of design, and this is pretty much personal preference, for me, I'm going to have to say I prefer the OnePlus design over the Moto design. I think this looks a little bit more eye-catching, in my opinion, especially with the camera module layout, whereas this is a little bit more functional on the Moto. So at least for me, in terms of the design, I would have to say the OnePlus gets the win here. Alright? That being said, if I was taking my personal preference out of it, I would have to say the design category, much like the build quality category, is a tie. Because I feel like both of these devices look really good, and they both have their own distinctive characteristics that may catch your eye. Alright? So again, personal preference for me, I like the OnePlus design over the Moto. Without including my opinions in it, I feel like the designs on these are a tie. Alright? Now let's move on. Let's now dive a little bit deeper into the displays on both of these devices. Okay, let's light them up. Okay? And then we're going to talk about them. Alright, so there's the Moto. And here's the OnePlus. And let's do this. So, talking about the displays on both of these devices, and they are set to the same brightness, so you can see the differences in brightness levels even though they're set to the same brightness. Now, talking about the displays here, the Moto G Power has a 6.4-inch IPS LCD display. It wasn't exactly clear which manufacturer made this display, but I did find out it is the equivalent of a Corning Gorilla Glass 3 display, even though this is not Corning Gorilla Glass on the Moto G Power. Whereas on the OnePlus here, this is a 6.52-inch IPS LCD Gorilla Glass 3 display. Okay, so this is indeed Gorilla Glass 3 from Corning on the OnePlus Nord N100. Now, where did they differ aside from screen sizes? The Moto G Power is a 1080p plus display. The Moto G Power has a resolution of 2300 by 1080p, giving it a screen density of 399 pixels per inch, or PPI if you want to know that sort of thing, whereas the OnePlus Nord N100 has a 720p plus display. So that's 1600 by 720p, giving it a screen density of 295 pixels per inch. Okay, but where they differ is the OnePlus Nord N100 is running a 90 Hz refresh rate display, okay? Whereas the Moto G Power is running just a basic 60 Hz refresh rate display. Now, in all honesty, guys and gals, okay, if I'm being 100% honest, I honestly cannot tell the difference, okay? So for me, having a higher refresh rate display doesn't really give one display an advantage over the other, because my eyes cannot discern a difference in the higher refresh rate. So, now that we went over all the technical stuff, let me give you guys and gals my opinions. Now, both of these displays, in my opinion, are top-notch. They both more than get the job done outdoors and or indoors, and I've had no issues with either display. Alright, so how do I feel about the displays? Who wins? This is another category where both of these devices tie. Now, some of y'all may say, but it's a 720p display versus a 1080p display. How can it be a tie? A good display to me is a good display. It doesn't matter the resolution, it doesn't matter the refresh rate. As long as it's a good display and I don't have any issues with it, then I'm good. So resolutions don't really matter. High refresh rates or refresh rates in general don't really matter. Again, I can't discern them, so I can't see any noticeable differences. All right. Would I prefer a higher resolution display? Yes. Okay. But honestly, looking at both of these displays side by side, they are both really good displays in my opinion. And yet again, for the display category, I'm calling this one a tie. All right. Just my opinion. Okay. But both of these displays on both of these devices are top notch. Now, moving on, let's dive a little bit deeper into the hardware and the software on both of these displays. Let's get into this now. Let's start off with the hardware first. And in the hardware category, you guys and gals are going to hear a lot of similarities, but pay attention to the key differences here as they might sway your overall opinions, okay? Now, in terms of the hardware, both of these devices are packing 4 gigs of onboard RAM. Both of these devices are packing 64 gigs of onboard internal storage, right? Both of these devices are also packing a expandable micro SD card slot as well, okay? But one major difference here when we talk about the micro SD card expansion is that the Moto G Power gives you the ability out of the box to make that micro SD card adaptable, expandable storage, whereas the OnePlus does not give you that ability out of the box. If you drop a micro SD card into the OnePlus, it's just going to be converted to portable storage. Now you can dive into developer options and click the option that says force applications to external SD card, okay? But that's not a feature that you get on the OnePlus out of the box. You drop an SD card in the OnePlus, it's going to be configured as portable storage. All right, so that's the first major difference between the two. Let's keep it going now. Another difference between the two devices that even though, I said that wrong. Another key difference between the two devices, even though it's the same on paper, technically, is the battery size. Now, on paper, both of these devices from their manufacturers advertise a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, but in my testing and verifications, I've seen a variety of different breakdowns or teardowns. I don't know why I said breakdowns, and I can verify here that the Moto G Power has a 4700 milliamp hour battery, and the OnePlus Nord N100 has a 4890 milliamp hour battery. So that's 4,890 milliamp hour battery for the OnePlus, and it's a 4,700 milliamp hour battery for the Moto. All right, good. Now let's keep it going here. Let's talk about some of these similarities here. Now, in terms of the similarities, okay, they both have 3.5 millimeter headphone jacks, and you can see it's pretty much in the same layout and orientation. They both have USB Type-C, and they both support their manufacturer's brand of quick charging. So we got turbo power charging on the Moto, and then we have rapid warp charging, dash charging, whatever you want to call it, on the OnePlus. Now, they both support up to 18 watt fast charging with their USB Type-C port. They both do have a dual speaker setup, so one bottom firing speaker and one front firing speaker as well. They both also have triple camera setups on the rear, and I have this microfiber cleaning cloth so they don't slide off the table, just in case y'all was wondering. But they both have triple camera setups in the rear, and they both have punch hole cameras on the front, as I showed y'all earlier. Now, they also both have always active capacitive fingerprint sensors, and they are really, really fast and really responsive in my opinion. Okay, so those are just some similarities there that I wanted to point out. Now let's get into some more differences here. In terms of the cameras and the layouts, you can see other than the visual differences, we do have a difference in hardware and what they're capable of here. So for the Moto, we have a 16 megapixel primary right here versus a 13 megapixel primary on the OnePlus. And we have an 8 megapixel ultra wide versus a 2 megapixel and a 2 megapixel depth on the OnePlus. Okay, now we also have a 2 megapixel macro on both. Okay, so those are the layouts. So a 13 2 and 2 on the OnePlus for the rear, 13 megapixel primary, 2 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and a 16 8 and 2 for the Moto G Power. 16 megapixel primary, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and 2 megapixel macro. Okay, but in my opinion, let's just chop off the macro sensors on both of these. And honestly, I feel like the depth sensor on the OnePlus ain't doing much. So for all intents and purposes, you could say this is a 13 megapixel setup versus a 2 megapixel layout here on the Moto. So when I say 2 megapixel, that means we're only counting the 16 megapixel primary and the 8 megapixel ultra wide. I like ultra wides and I like primary sensors. Anything after that doesn't really make sense to me. Alright, so those are the differences in the rear cameras, and y'all can see the differences in the layout and look. Now, talking about the resolutions for the rear cameras, the Moto G Power can record all the way up to 4K, 30 FPS, alright? And it can also do slow motion at 120 frames per second in 720p and 240 frames per second. Wow, it can also do slow motion in 1080p at 120 frames per second and 720p at 240 frames per second. And it can do slow motion on the front and the rear facing cameras on the Moto G Power. Okay? Whereas on the OnePlus, you can only record up to 1080p at 30 FPS. So you have 720p, 30 FPS, and 1080p, 30 FPS on either the front or the rear facing cameras on the OnePlus. Okay, so those are the key differences in terms of camera hardware. Now flipping it over to the front, we have a 16 megapixel secondary front facing camera on the Moto, and we have an 8 megapixel secondary front facing camera on the OnePlus. Okay, now in terms of the recordings, you can do 1080p 30 FPS on both, but the key difference here is that on the Moto, you can do that slow motion at 120 frames per second on the front, just like you can on the rear, whereas you don't get any slow motion on the OnePlus. Okay, so those are the cameras, the resolutions, and the differences between both devices. Now, let's dive into some more internals here in terms of the hardware. In terms of the chipsets here, we have Snapdragon chipsets on both. Now we have the Snapdragon 665 octa-core chipset with the Adreno 610 GPU on the Moto G Power. So that is a mid-range chipset, a newer mid-range chipset if you didn't know, versus the Snapdragon 460 octa-core processor, and again the Adreno 610 GPU on the OnePlus. Now that 460 is a budget or entry-level chipset, but y'all can see in terms of the GPUs, they're rocking the same GPU. Alright, so clearly here in terms of processing power and chipsets, we have an entry-level chipset from Snapdragon versus a mid-range chipset from Snapdragon. Okay, both newer chipsets. Alright? Alright, so that goes over all of the hardware in my opinion. Now, talking about the software on these, and this is where they also differ, but they are very similar. We have pretty much Motorola UX on top of Android 10 versus the Oxygen OS 5.5 on top of Android 10. Okay, so what does that mean? That means with Motorola, you have a very stock Android-like experience, but you do have your custom gestures here. Okay, so you could do things like twist to open up the cameras. Okay, you can also do things like chop to turn on your flashlight, and there's a bunch of different gestures in here as well. Other than that, it's an extremely stock experience. Okay, so one of the reasons why I like the Motorola UX is because it's a very stock experience, and they throw in only the features that they feel the users are going to use. And trust me, y'all, once you get used to this to launch your camera, you'll be doing it on other devices, wondering why other manufacturers haven't implemented it. Or once you do this to turn on your flashlight, again, once you get used to that, you'll be doing it on other devices, trying to figure out why other manufacturers haven't implemented it. So I really do like the overall Moto UX here. Okay? And when we talk about the Oxygen OS on the OnePlus, you could do a variety of similar things with, a little bit more effort. So if you want to launch the cameras, you double tap, launch you into the cameras on the OnePlus. Now I have a few different camera apps, so it's asking me here which one I want to use. But you see, simply all you have to do is double tap from any screen on your device. It launches you into the cameras. And if you want to turn on your flashlight, you can configure multiple gestures. I have a gesture where I draw an O to turn on the flashlight, draw the O again to turn it off. But in terms of the OnePlus Oxygen OS here, you have a stock Android experience with a bunch of different customizations available out of the box and a bunch of different gestures as well. So you got your double tap to sleep, you got your double tap to wake, you have your face unlock, you have your ambient display, so on and so forth. So y'all saw that lock there? Okay? You see it scan for my face and you got the lock there, and then just swipe up to unlock it. Now I turned that on in the settings. You can also turn it on to where once it scans your face, it will unlock right away. But I like being able to see my lock screen. But you got a bunch of different customizations and gestures on the OnePlus, just like you have on the Moto. But in terms of customizations, OnePlus is definitely taking the cake here. But that being said, what really matters here is how the software performs in day-to-day experiences. And in terms of the day-to-day software experience, I have to say both of these devices pretty much perform the same. Alright? So they both do have some RAM management issues, yes. And they both do have issues holding large amounts of applications in memory. Okay, so pretty much for both of these, when we talk about the day-to-day experience, I'm gonna have to call it a tie. And honestly, you don't want to keep open on either of these devices more than 7 to maybe 11 applications. If you do any more than that, you're gonna see a lot of apps slow down, you're gonna see a lot of app refreshes and reloads. It's not going to be an enjoyable experience. But if you're the type of user that doesn't use a lot of applications on a daily basis, then you should have an enjoyable experience on both of these. Alright? So, that being said, in terms of the hardware, who wins? Okay? In terms of the software, who wins? Okay? Now, in terms of the hardware, I'm going to have to call it a tie because they both pretty much have very similar hardware and very similar feature sets, with the key differences being the adaptable storage on the microSD card and the battery size. But spoiler alert, the battery sizes didn't really make any difference. The battery on both of these devices are pretty much the same with my style of usage, and the battery life on here is phenomenal. Okay? So, in terms of hardware, we're calling it a tie on this one. In terms of software, now they're both running Android 10, and they're both not up to date in terms of the security patches. The OnePlus is on the February 5th security patch, whereas the Moto G Power, I do believe it's on the March 5th security patch. So you can see they are both behind, and they are both still on Android 10. Now, Motorola is not the best with their software rollouts and their updates anymore. They were phenomenal when they were owned by Google, but they've pretty much fallen off of the wayside now. But they have not stated if they're going to update this to Android 11, and there's no information about security patches or anything like that coming from the Motorola camp. Whereas from OnePlus has already stated that they're only going to give their OnePlus Nord lineup one year of software support and no major Android OS updates. So you're going to be stuck on Android 10 on the OnePlus Nord, and you're only going to get 1 year of software support and security patches and updates. All right, so those are just some things that I wanted to point out from both manufacturers. Okay, you take that or leave that. But in terms of the software here, I don't know. This is tough. I'm inclined to call the software a tie as well. But I really do enjoy the Moto experience. But I also really do enjoy the OnePlus experience, especially with the customizations and the gestures that you can do on OnePlus. Yeah, I'm going to have to call the software experience a tie. So not only do they tie in the day-to-day performance, but they tie in also the features and overall offerings in terms of software from both. So that's a tie on the hardware and that's a tie on the software. Okay, so really good hardware and really good software coming from both manufacturers here. All right, let's keep it moving now. Man. All right, up next now, let's talk about the Wi-Fi performance on both. And again, in terms of Wi-Fi performance, it's pretty much a tie again. They both support dual band Wi-Fi, so they both have support for your 2.4 gigahertz band Wi-Fi and your 5 gigahertz band Wi-Fi as well. And I gotta tell y'all, in terms of the day-to-day Wi-Fi performance, they both performed phenomenally, and I didn't have any issues. But let's do a real-time Wi-Fi test. This will also double as a speaker test as well. And then I'm going to give y'all my overall thoughts on the speaker performance and the speaker placement. So let's go ahead and load it up here. Now I did load up some copyright-free music on both. Let's go ahead and launch them. And you can see I did pull it up in the memory prior to the video. And you can see the OnePlus had to refresh it, whereas the Moto kept it in memory. So let's go ahead and find it again. Okay, right here. Now I have already set the volumes on these to 100%. So y'all are going to get an overall general idea of how the speakers sound and perform at 100% volume. Okay, so let me pull it back up on the OnePlus. And let's go ahead and pause it here. And now let me put these on a stand, so y'all can get a speaker sample without me obstructing the speakers. And then we're going to demonstrate why this layout is not as good. And you know what? We're going to start with the Moto G Power first. Okay? So I already spun my mic around because we're trying to do this video as fast as possible. So let me let y'all hear the Moto G Power's speakers at max volume for a little bit. And then we're going to give y'all a real-time Wi-Fi performance test. So here we go. Enjoy, everybody. Okay, let's do the Wi-Fi performance test now. Let's go forward. Let's go backwards. Okay, that's the Moto. Alright, now let's do the OnePlus. Same song, same volume. Let's do this. Oops. Here we go. Okay. All right, let's check the Wi-Fi performance. Okay, so that was the OnePlus Nord N100. Now, let's talk about these speakers. Let's talk about the Wi-Fi performance. Let's talk about the placement. Let's get into this. Now, talking about the speakers and the placement on both, I don't really care if y'all see my thing. It doesn't really make a difference. Talking about the speakers and the placement on both, like I said earlier, I really do appreciate the fact that we get a stereo speaker setup on both, so y'all can see, and y'all can see from the demonstration in here, we got a bottom firing speaker on both, and we have a front mounted speaker on both. All right, now I really do appreciate that stereo setup. Okay, I would prefer a stereo setup as opposed to a single firing speaker, but, and as I demonstrated, that type of stereo setup is very easy to muffle, especially from the bottom and up and or obstruct. So I really would have liked a stereo front-facing set of speakers. Okay, you got more than enough bezel down here at the bottom on both to throw in another speaker down there. Why not? But that being said, although I'm not a fan of the layout, the overall performance of these speakers are top-notch. Now, who wins in terms of the speaker performance category? In terms of the volume and clarity, they are both really, really good with little to no distortion at max volumes. But I did notice that the OnePlus stereo speakers get fuller and sound louder than the Moto G Power. Okay? Now, the OnePlus speakers, they have DTS audio versus Adobe Audio on the Moto G Power. And I have to say, in terms of the speaker performance, the OnePlus sounded better to my ears. And aside from this video, I tested them side by side with multiple different genres of music, and the OnePlus pretty much all the time sounded fuller and it sounded louder. Now, in terms of clarity, they're pretty much both the same. But overall, I would give the win in terms of the speaker performance to the OnePlus. And in terms of placement, not a fan on either. Okay? I love the stereo, but I wanted stereo front facing. Not one bottom firing and one front facing. Alright? That being said, the Wi-Fi performance on both is top notch. No issues with the overall Wi-Fi performance on either. So let's keep it moving now. Okay, that covers the Wi-Fi performance. Let's talk about the available LTE bands, or the LTE bands supported on both. Now, the Moto G Power here is the straight talk Verizon CDMA locked model. But Motorola does sell a globally unlocked model on Amazon, okay? And that globally unlocked model does give you 4G LTE on all the carriers, okay? So if we pull up the LTE bands for the Moto here, okay, you can see in terms of the bands, the Moto device has them all the way up to 66 and 71. The Moto device got all of them, all right? So if you pick up the globally unlocked version of the Moto G Power 2020, it will work on all the carriers. You can take it to whatever carrier you want, and you should be good to go. All right, now this straight talk Verizon version only works on CDMA carriers, and right now it's locked to Verizon. All right, but that's the key difference in terms of bands here. So you can see the bands for the Moto G Power. Again, you got all of the LTE bands, no 5G on either of these devices. All right, whereas when we look at the OnePlus Nord N100 here, let me pull up the bands on that. This is a GSM only unlocked device. All right, so you can only get the globally unlocked version of this device if you buy it straight from OnePlus. If you buy it anywhere else, it's going to be the GSM unlocked variant. And yet again, we got another refresh on the OnePlus. Okay, so let's pull up those bands again. See, OnePlus does have some serious RAM management issues. They definitely need some more optimization. So you can see the bands on the OnePlus, you're missing out on band 66 and band 71, but you got all of the other bands there for the OnePlus Nord N100. All right, so for all intensive purposes, these pretty much have the same coverage except for one key difference, okay? GSM only, so T-Mobile, AT&T, Cricket, Metro by T-Mobile, so on and so forth. CDMA only as of right now. So Verizon, Visible, what was Sprint's carrier called again? Boost Mobile, so on and so forth. But when you get this unlocked, the Moto G Power, when I get it unlocked, it will be globally unlocked. So I could take it to AT&T, I could take it to T-Mobile, I can keep it on Verizon, I can go to Sprint, so on and so forth. So in terms of the bands, the Motorola on paper has more bands and it could work on more carriers if you get the globally unlocked variant. That being said, however, for what y'all see in this video is GSM versus CDMA, and that really does come down to your carrier, what coverage they're using, and your location and your overall carrier's coverage area. All right? But that being said, I've tested both of these devices. I tested this one on Straight Talk Verizon, as I said, and I tested this one on Free Up Mobile AT&T, and they both work phenomenally in terms of the data speeds and the coverage. Granted, I don't have T-Mobile anymore. Now I'm just rocking with AT&T and Verizon. Again, Free Up Mobile and Straight Talk Verizon. All right, but that goes over the supported LTE bands on both, and let's keep it moving. Up next now, let's talk about the Bluetooth on both of these devices here. Now, Bluetooth-wise, both of these devices are rocking Bluetooth 5.0 on board. And I got to tell y'all, in terms of the Bluetooth, I've had no issues on either device. Okay, so you can see I pretty much connected up the same Bluetooth devices on both devices, and I've had no issues. These are my favorite pairs of earbuds, and I've had no issues on either device. Okay, so Bluetooth 5.0 on both, no issues on both. All right, as y'all can see right there. Okay, so the Bluetooth on both is a tie, and the Bluetooth performance on both is top notch. All right. And the same thing can be said for the next category here, okay? The GPS performance. Turn-by-turn GPS navigation or turn-by-turn navigation, geocaching, geotagging on both works flawlessly. So in terms of GPS performance, it's top-notch on both. So this is another category where it's a tie on both, all right? So Bluetooth performance, tie. GPS performance, tie. All right. Now, moving on here, let's talk about the overall call quality through the onboard receiver and the overall call quality through the onboard speaker. Now, I have to say, in terms of the overall call quality, keep in mind it's very carrier and location based. Both of these devices did a great job. Calls through the onboard receiver was very crisp and clear on both. But in terms of the volume, I feel as though the receiver on the OnePlus gets a little bit louder than the receiver on the Moto. All right? And the same rules apply for the speakerphone calls as well. They both did a really good job, but in terms of the volume, I feel as though the speakerphone calls on the OnePlus get a little bit louder than the speakerphone calls on the Moto. So in terms of call quality and speaker call quality, OnePlus is taking the win here. All right? Okay. Now, moving on, let's talk about my overall experiences between the cameras on both of these devices. how did they do? Alright, now when I judge cameras on both devices, I'm doing it from 3 distinctive categories: point and shoot photo performance, point and shoot video performance, and overall audio capture capabilities. And I have to say, both of these devices did a really good job, okay? But the deciding factor for me came down to the focusing speeds for the cameras, okay? So both of these devices can take really good photos as long as you have good to really good lighting. Both of these devices can take really good video as long as you have a very stable hand, okay? Because they both don't have OIS. They both advertise EIS, but the EIS on both of them is not the best, okay? So you're going to need a very steady hand, and or you might need to get you a little stabilizer or phone mount so you can get smooth video, alright? But in terms of video, as long as you have good lighting and a steady hand, you should get some good video on both. In terms of photos, as long as you have patience, and you're going to need some patience for the Moto, and you're going to get a good photo. Patience and good lighting, you're going to get a good photo. In terms of audio capture capabilities, they both did a really great job. Now, why do I prefer the OnePlus over the Moto? As I said, it comes down to the focusing speeds. For some strange reason, I have to keep reshooting, like up to 3, 4, 5 times on the Moto before I get a good shot that's in focus, that's not blurry. Whereas on the OnePlus, that focusing speed for the photos, almost instant, man. So, who has the better cameras in my opinion? I'm going to have to give it to the OnePlus Nord N100. Now, I know some of y'all are going to say, but the Nord only records up to 1080p. But you don't get any slow motion. But I understand that. But y'all also have to understand that when I'm taking photos, I don't care about that. I care about the speed at which I can take the photo and the majority of the time at which the photo is going to come out the way I want it to. And also when I'm recording videos, when I'm not testing a device, I don't care about recording in 4K. I record my videos in 720p or 1080p. Okay? Those are the resolutions that give you really good quality and don't have gigantic file sizes when you're done. So I don't care that the Moto can record up to 4K. I don't care that the Moto can do slow motion. I don't care. What really matters to me is how fast and how nice those pictures turn out and how good the overall video quality is when I need to shoot something. And sadly for the Moto, the photo performance is not the best. That's why the OnePlus wins in my opinion. Keep in mind, this is just my opinion and my preference, okay? Everybody's entitled to their own preferences and their own opinions. All right? We can agree to disagree, okay? As long as we can do so respectfully. All right. But that pretty much does it for the cameras, okay? Really good cameras on both, as long as you have really good lighting and you have a really steady hand. All right? But in my opinion, the OnePlus wins over the Moto in this category. Let's keep it moving now. Let's go. Up next, let's talk about the gaming performance on both. Now, this is another category where both of these devices tie, okay? So they both really have really good overall gaming performance. You will notice a noticeable performance dip with extended gameplay of up to 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, and after that dip, the experience won't be as smooth, so you may want to go in and adjust the gameplay settings to have an overall smoother experience. But in terms of the game performance on both of these devices, it is good. Alright, not great, not top notch, but good. It will get the job done if you want to play something. Alright, so gaming performance is a tie. Up next, let's talk about the overall battery life and the overall charge times on both of these. And this is one of my favorite categories here. Again, let me reiterate, 1080p plus display on the Moto, 4700 milliamp hour battery, 15 or 18-watt turbo power fast charging depending on your region. Okay? Versus 18-watt fast charging on the OnePlus. Okay? 720p plus display. Alright? 4890 milliamp hour battery. Okay? Just so y'all know the key differences there. Now, in terms of the overall battery health, let's get that out the way first. Y'all can see for the OnePlus, the battery health is at 97%. Okay? This is after about 3 weeks of hard usage. 97%. Okay? Versus the 100% battery health on the Moto G Power here. So let me show y'all this. Okay? After a few, it's been more than a few months. After a long time of usage, still got the battery health on the Moto rocking at 100%. Now, talking about the overall battery life on both, I have to say it's very, very similar. Now, I'm not going to show y'all any screenshots. If y'all want the in-depth screenshots and the charge times, check out the full reviews. Go to the battery life and charge times category on the full reviews if y'all want those in-depth screenshots. We're just going to talk about my overall experience and how I feel in this versus/comparison video. Now, talking about the overall battery life on both, it is phenomenal on both. Okay? I'm easily getting through a day to a day and a half on either device, and I'm easily averaging between 10 and 15 hours of screen on time on either device. Keep in mind, I'm what you would call an extremely heavy user. Anything that I can do from my smartphone, I will do from my smartphone. Okay? So your guys and gals results may vary depending on your usage style. Just like the charge time. Your guys and gals charge times will vary depending on what percentage you put the devices on the charger at and how long you let them charge. Okay? So overall battery life on these is phenomenal. Overall charge times, however, do differ by about 30 to 35 minutes. So the OnePlus charges up to full in about 2 to 2.5 hours. Versus the Moto that charges up to full in about 2.5 to 3.5 hours. Okay? That was done from 5% to 100, 3 to 5 times, 10% to 100, 3 to 5 times, 15% to 100, 3 to 5 times, and 20% to 100, 3 to 5 times. Okay? So the Moto averages 2.5 to 3.5 hours to charge to full. And that's with a stock charger and a really good quality cable. So stock turbo power charger and a really good high quality cable. Whereas the OnePlus charges up in about 2 to 2.5 hours, just over 2.5 hours to reach a full charge. And that's with the included charging brick and cable that came with the OnePlus Nord N100. I can't get the fast charging speeds without using that cable. So if you want the absolute fastest charging speeds for your OnePlus, you need to use the cable that's included with it. Because I've tried various different cables and various different bricks. It's not charging as fast as if I would use the included brick. So that's one thing I want y'all to keep in mind. If you get a OnePlus, you need to use that included brick that comes with it to get the fastest charging. But again, as I said, in terms of charge times, they differ by about 30 to 35 minutes. 2.5 hours. Just over 2.5 hours on the OnePlus, 2.5 to 3.5 hours on the Moto. So whereas the battery life is a tie, the OnePlus Nord N100 definitely gets the W when we talk about charge times. And that was very surprising, especially considering that the OnePlus has the slightly bigger battery. So I was expecting it to take a little bit longer, but it is what it is. Okay? So battery life, tie. Charging times, giving the W to the OnePlus. Alright, now, moving on here, let's get into the final part of this video, and I know this video is probably going to be a little lengthy, so it will be timestamped for your convenience. Let's talk pricing, let's talk availability, let's get into my final thoughts and overall recommendations. Which device would I recommend over the other? got to talk about the pricing first. So, pricing wise, okay. Now, both of these devices have tempered glass screen protectors. Both of these devices have cases. Now, in terms of the pricing, for everything y'all see on the table here for the Moto G Power, this one ran me about $200.58, I think it is. I have my calculator pulled up here with all the numbers. Let me pull it up here. Yes, so the Moto G Power with the cases, the screen protectors, and the device ran me $287. I mean, 287 cents. My bad, right here. Check the calculations. Okay, $200.87. That's for the device, the cases, and the screen protector. That does not include the micro SD card. Now, the micro SD card is going to run you another 15 to 20 bucks, depending on the size that you get. Now, I have Samsung SD cards in these. I have 128 gigabyte Samsung SD cards. That's what I would recommend. I'll link that up down below in the video description as well. So, for the Moto G Power, as y'all see it in the video, $200.87, not including the micro SD card. Alright? Now, for the OnePlus Nord N100, let me jump over to my other calculator here. The OnePlus Nord N100 ran me $201.58. So that's for the device. That's for the case and the tempered glass screen protector, which also came with a lens tempered glass screen protector. Check out the pricing. My bad. Swipe away. Check out the pricing. So that's $192.59 after tax, and $8.99 for the accessories. Again, that does not include the micro SD card. Alright? So that is what I paid for either device. So technically, if you're going by price, pick up the Moto G Power. You'll have an enjoyable experience. You'll be good to go. You'll save a lot of money. That being said, in my overall opinion, which device would I recommend over the other and why? Man, it really hurts my soul to keep saying this, but it's true. Y'all know I can't lie. It's true. So, in my opinion, which device would I recommend over the other? I would recommend the OnePlus Nord N100 over the Moto G Power. Okay? Why? Why? Well, it really comes down to three key things. The overall speaker performance on the OnePlus is better than the G Power, in my opinion. Alright? Y'all know I do a lot of media consumption, content consumption on my devices. So that's a big thing. The overall charge times on the OnePlus are better than the Moto G Power, in my opinion. And this was icing on the cake, the focusing speeds for the cameras on the OnePlus are faster than the Moto G Power. Those were the three key deciding factors that made me recommend the OnePlus Nord N100 over the Moto G Power. So yes, is it a little bit more expensive? Yes. But do I feel like it's worth it? Yes. Okay? That's just in my opinion. Okay? That being said, if you want to pick up either device right now today, let's check the pricing currently. Okay? So jumping over to Amazon here for the Moto G Power 2020 model. Keep in mind, this is just the device. This doesn't include the taxes, the shipping and handling, or the accessories. Right now, you can get the Moto G Power 2020 model used in new condition for about $145. Or you can get it in brand new condition, globally unlocked, for $179.99. So $180. Okay? Globally unlocked, just the device itself. Whereas for the OnePlus, okay, so if we pull up the OnePlus pricing here. Alright, OnePlus Nord N100. Right now, today, as of the recording of this video, you can get the OnePlus Nord N100 for as low as $150 or as high as $170. So $169.99. $170. Keep in mind that does not include taxes, shipping and handling, and or accessories. Okay? So you can see, yet again, the Moto G Power is coming up a little cheaper. Okay? At least on the used end. It's a little bit more expensive on the brand new end. Alright? But that pretty much does it for this video. As always, I hope you guys and gals enjoyed the video. I hope y'all found it helpful. If you did indeed enjoy the video and or you found it helpful, please help your boy out by giving the video a thumbs up. That really does help me out. You don't know how much. As always, if you'd like to see more content like this, please feel free to hit that subscribe button down below and make sure you click off the notification bell icon right next to it so you guys and gals get notified when I publish new videos. That being said, if this video piqued your interest, all the links to all the coverage that I've done on either of these devices, as well as the purchasing links for each of these devices for the device, their accessories, and their recommended microSD cards, all of that will be linked up down below in the video description. And those are affiliate links, so I do get a small percentage of kickback from those links that I do put back into the channel and producing and bringing you guys and gals more content at no additional cost to you guys and gals. So as always, if your interest is piqued, down below in the video description will be like a one-stop shop for you guys and gals, and you should be good to go. Alright? Recording this video here today, I did use the rear-facing 12-megapixel camera on the Samsung Galaxy S7 Active, and this was recorded in 720p at 30 FPS. And recording on the audio here today, I did use the Movo MA2010 omnidirectional microphone. So please let me know what you think of the overall video quality, as well as what you think of the overall audio quality down below. As always, all your feedback is greatly appreciated, and keep it respectful, please. Now, let's get into a nice, respectful conversation about how y'all feel about either of these devices down below in the comments. I will meet you guys and gals down there, and as always, keep it respectful, please. Oh man, that does it for this one, and you know, I'm sad again. So, in this Battery Beast series, so far, the Moto G Power has went up against two devices, the Pixel 3a XL, and now the OnePlus Nord N100, and sadly, its record is not looking too good. So it hasn't won any, so it's 0-2. So right now, the Moto G Power is taking 2 L's right now. It's sad, it's sad. Alright, so I will see you guys and gals in the next video. I hope everyone has a great day. I hope you guys and gals are staying safe out there. And have a good one, y'all. We are out of here. Peace.